Still here at Canadian Motorsport Park. The USCR, the United Sports Car Racing, is the 2014 plan for North American racing. And Scot Elkins is the COO of the American Le Mans Series. He's one of the two people charged with putting the new series together from the standpoint of the schedule and the technical parity to make all these cars run together. So on the internet, maybe we should call this a drive exclusive, because we're going to talk to Scot Elkins and find out, maybe firsthand, maybe first time, what's going on with the new plan for the new racing series. This is a great opportunity to find out what's going on with the USCR for 2014 with Scot Elkins. But cards on the table, we have a professional history together. So I'm going to make every attempt to be the professional that he wishes I was. And Scott's going to do his job as he does for not just ALMS, but USCR. You're the Vice President of Competition. So the first question has to be, everyone's waiting for a sense of the schedule. And I know we're going to not trade big secrets, but tell us a little bit about the process of what's happening to pull the schedule together for 14.
Yeah, the biggest thing that we're dealing with for the 2014 schedule is the fact that we've got 22 racetracks that we know we can't have 22 different events next year because of budgets for the combined of the team. So what we've got to do is go through and kind of pick and choose a little bit as to what tracks are going to make it and what tracks aren't. So that's the long-term process right now of going through and trying to make sure what makes sense.
Now, you're really good at not answering the questions that you don't want to, so I respect that, but here we go. 22 tracks. I think you've talked about maybe 11 or 12 events next year.
Yeah.
We've got 5 classes. So is there going to be a way to make everyone happy, or?
Yeah, and I kind of messed up a little bit. There's 22 events this year. There's actually 17 racetracks.
Got it, okay.
So the numbers work a little bit differently than that.
Still bigger than the 11 or 12 that you need to race.
Yeah, there are more than what we need. And the truth of the matter is, with the combination of the two series, we're going to have higher car counts too. So part of it boils down to what track has room for us and what track doesn't.
What criteria can you share, do you use to evaluate? I mean, I'd hate to think it's like a bad NFL bidding on the quarterback, best team gets it. I'm sure there are a ton of criteria to go into it.
Yeah, there's a lot more than just what you talked about with the NFL thing. And the biggest part of it is it really boils down to what kind of partnerships we've had in the past. I mean, we do have relationships with these people. We want to do business in the same way. We don't want anybody to be left out, but at some point somebody's going to have to be, because we can't increase budgets for the race teams in a massive way, because then we won't have any teams to run. And like, one of the big concerns is that for the ALMS teams, we're adding 24 hours of racing at Daytona. For the Grand Am teams, we're adding 10 hours and 12 hours at Sebring, because we know those events are going to be because that's some of the great events that we have. So adding that, you're basically adding 30 hours of running to each side. That already increases the budget. So you can't do 17 races. It just doesn't work.
You kind of figured out that the budget, you could project it as maybe 1.5 what people are spending now in ALMS?
I don't think it's that big.
Okay.
I think it's a multiplier, yeah, and it's going to be, I mean, just by default, everybody either does, they do their budgets either by number of miles or number of hours, and, we know that it's going to be more.
So you're also responsible for basically the technical aspect of making each class work, and you're doing that in concert with another friend of mine, Richard Buck.
Yep.
Came out from Grand Am.
Yep.
Has Champ Car experience.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, as a sidebar, you have NASCAR experience.
Yeah, I do.
I
spent 5 seasons as an engineer with Robert Yates Racing in NASCAR.
They accomplished nothing.
They did okay.
They did okay. So take me through a little bit of the process that's happening to come up with this technical balancing and probably even the schedule. My question is very simple. I'll set it up this way. I have a feeling your job is a lot like that scene from the movie Departed when Leo DiCaprio goes into the bar and asks for a cranberry juice.
Yeah.
And then the guy intercedes and says, hey, I'm the guy that decides who you hit and who you don't hit.
Yeah.
Is your job diplomacy between the manufacturers, the teams, the series, the sanctions? Take us through this whole process of how you're pulling all this stuff together.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And it's funny because I just watched The Departed on my flight back from Germany Sunday or Monday. That's really funny. It's exactly like that. It's trying to figure out how to make peace with everybody. And that's kind of the hardest part because we have different stakeholders at every level. And whether it's a stakeholder that gives us money or doesn't, the majority of the people do, whether it's a team or a sponsor or whatever. And we need to try to figure out a way to make everybody happy. It's not possible to make everybody happy, but in terms of the technical aspects of everything, we're trying to do, and we keep saying it over and over again, but it's an actual fact, we're trying to meld the best of both worlds.
How soon do you feel you have to tell the world, series and technical, so that everyone can do their job?
We need to have everything together in a draft form, which is kind of the way we do things in terms of rule books. We publish a draft and then let competitors and everyone take a look at it, give us feedback, and then we go with a final release. I think if we don't have something ready by October, we're in big trouble. You know, and I think we're going to hit that target. I mean, we've got an internal timeline.
Yep.
Everybody, moans and complains to me on Twitter and everywhere else that nobody's doing anything. Speed up, speed up, speed up. But the truth of the matter is, what we're trying to do is a big deal.
So, and not to pretend I'm doing your job for you, but one of the things to make clear is the dialogue is happening right now. You're not living in a little bubble.
No.
You're talking to the manufacturers.
Constantly.
You're talking to all those constituents.
Yeah, constantly.
Okay. My fans would hate it if I didn't cover the classes and get a little taste of what the challenges are.
Yep.
And I'm going to leave DP and P2 a little bit more toward the end.
Thanks.
GTLM, you're welcome. GTLM is stay the course, just carry over.
Yep.
Pretty much straightforward.
Yep.
GT Daytona is the combination of our GTC and ALMS and the Grand M GT class.
Right.
And there's this elephant in the room called GT3. What can you share with me that's going on with this GTD category?
So the idea was to have a secondary class that's not so dissimilar to GTC, that has a driver rating system that provides the opportunity for amateur drivers to drive with pros and have a fair opportunity to win races.
Which is GTC right now.
Which is GTC right now, which has been honestly pretty successful. It's not been too bad. We've had, we always said there was going to be a 10-car cap. We've always had 8, 9, 10 cars, and it seems to be really successful. So we wanted to carry that over to the class below GTLM. So what we'll have is we'll have GTD, which is the Rolex GT stuff, like you mentioned. The truth of the matter is the Rolex GT is a little bit different because it's always been a specification that's not like anything else in the world, right?
They take a GT3 car or their own, and then they morph it into their thing.
Yeah, and so the idea for next year in 2014 is to still have a GT3 car that can come and race, but to have very, very minor modifications so that it's not going to race as an FIA GT3 car because it can't, because the truth of the matter is those things are faster than GTLM, right?
And don't lose your place, but give me the simple reason why GT3 is not the solution.
It's not the solution because it is purely a customer-based form of racing. The truth of the matter is a lot of them, they're at good price points because they're based on the road cars. And what happens is, because they're based on the road cars, as weird as this sounds, their performance level is sometimes higher, right? That makes it difficult to say that that's just the answer. So for us, we find it a temporary solution because we are making these plans for 14 and 15. I think we've been pretty open about the fact that we're having these GT convergence meetings with the FIA and the ACO and every manufacturer in the world, and we're talking about, okay, well, what do we do in 16 to make things a little easier for a worldwide specification, right?
And without sounding like I need to translate, a new GT spec for the globe.
Correct, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah, so
maybe 2 classes, but something new.
Yeah, exactly.
And unified.
Yeah, and we've decided, it's going to be 2 classes. That's defined. So for me, what makes sense is for us to allow GT3 cars to come over, but have some minor modifications. And what we mean by that is that right now Grand Am has a single specified rear wing that everybody has to run. So I want that rear wing to still be on there because I want the cars that exist now to still run with the new cars. We'll put an engine restrictor, not a sonic air restrictor like we use in some of the other places, but some form of controlling the horsepower of the cars. And the idea in general is to take the performance level of GTD and kind of move it back a little bit. We have to do that to make sure that it matches up with GTLM, right? The same way we did with GTC. The GTC cars have restrictors to do what we need to do for the GT ALMS cars. So
I was going to use speed differential.
yeah, same
as a
difference.
Stepping off point.
Same difference, yeah.
For getting into the DPP2, but let me finish with the speed differential for these two cars.
Yep.
How much of a gap do you need to create?
It varies per track, and I don't have the number off the top of my head, unfortunately. But we'll define a percentage that it needs to be, 4% difference in here and there, and it'll be based on lap time. We can't do corner speeds and straight line speeds because we just can't tweak it that close. It's just not possible.
What do you want to say about the biggest challenge for this whole DPP2 discussion?
Nothing.
What am I going to ask you to say in terms of everyone seems to fear slowing down the P2 to make it no longer a race car and speeding up the DP, which is unnatural. You've got 2 years of transition.
Yeah.
Right?
It's funny because the primary basis behind what we're doing with the DP P2 integration, as we're calling it, the fact of the matter is the DP cars have to be sped up no matter what. If we didn't have a single P2 car come race with us, which is not what anybody wants, not what I want, not what Jim France, not what anyone wants, but if that happened, the DP cars still have to be faster to kind of get up and out of the way of the GTLM cars, right? So we have to make that change no matter what. And what'll happen is we're focusing on that. We're focusing on that change and getting the DP car sped up to that point. Once we get to that point, that goal is really based off the GTLM cars, not off P2. We'll get it to that point, and then I'll start working on balancing P2 and DP together, because the changes we make to the DP are kind of organically going to make it a little bit more like the P2 car anyway.
Continental Tire will be the tire of that class?
We think so. We haven't finished the contracts. We don't really know for sure what it's going to be. Commercial deals have to be put together. I can't say yes or no.
Then I apologize for leading the witness too much.
No worries.
Let me ask the question this way. Will the same tire be on a DP that's on a P2?
Yeah, it seems like that would be the same thing. And we've asked some of the guys to create some different specifications, do some different work for us. So that's all ongoing as well. It's all part of the process. So
last question of all this. How are we doing the process of this equalization? Is it all computer simulation?
Yeah.
Will we get to the racetrack? Will there be people shooting pictures again of cars at play? Okay. So
yeah, I mean and not specific to this process, but over the course of I guess a guy's experience in working in motor racing, which is I think I'm going on 18 years now or something like that, which is really weird for me, by the way, because I still feel like I'm 25 years old. But yeah, we're all the same. But the process of making a change the way we're doing it, it's very modern. It's very common. Is which you start out with simulations, you take the high points and the high levels that you find in the simulation, you validate those changes through like CFD, through the aerodynamics, because that's probably the biggest place where we're going to be working. And then you take those CFD changes, you make real size parts, you put them on a wind tunnel model, or you do it on a scale model, and you validate the CFD with the wind tunnel model, and then you go and run it on the racetrack. And that's a process, whether it was speeding up the DP or creating the new Champ car that we did in 2007, or any aspect, whether it was the Gen 6 NASCAR or Cup car, whatever it is, we all did the same thing. That's the process you use today.
So JF loves when I break the rule of last question, but here we go. So the fans have their opinions, and I can walk the paddocks of both Grand Am and ALMS and hear some stuff. How are the manufacturers responding to this whole DP-P2 discussion?
They are very supportive and very happy about it. Truth of the matter is, a lot of the work that we're doing involves them. We've got some of the manufacturers doing some simulations for us. They've given us some ideas. I mean, we're all tying this together. The truth of the matter is, if we don't all say, yep, that makes sense, then we're not all going to buy into it in 14. So that's the way it needs to work.
Thanks for the time.
Sure, brother.
Let's go back to work.
All right.
All right.
Bye.